Everyone, it's Maddie, and what you're about to see is a combined vlog for days 2 and 3 of the stay-at-home reading rush. Because the next 2 books on our TBR are books that we both want to read, we've got to decide who's going to read which one first. So it's either The Last Summer of the Garrett Girls by Jessica Spotswood or Proof of Forever by Lexa Hillyer. This is one that we already read 5 years ago, but it's been so long that I am forgetting the finer details, so it's practically a new book. But I'm assuming that because we've read it once before, it will come flooding back and will be a quicker read.
Heads, I'll read this one first. Tails, I'll read this one first. So I'm reading this one first. Can you read that one?
Hey. So I've read the first 100 pages of The Last Summer of the Garrett Girls, and I now feel very familiar with what character type each sister is. So first, you've got the eldest, Des. She is the responsible, boring one. B, the second oldest, who's the studious one, but very discontent with how her life is going.
Sounds like another bee I know.
Then there's Kat, who is the dramatic one, and the youngest, Vi, who is nervous as she's dealing with an unrequited crush. I like elements of each girl's plot. I'd say I like B's plot the least, mostly because she's in a relationship at the beginning of the book and she knows that she doesn't love the boy she's with, and she's started to be interested in a new boy in her town and is pursuing that a little bit, so there's some emotional cheating going on, which is never okay. Des is probably the sister that I find most relatable, but it always makes me sad when a boring character considers herself boring just because she has like stay-at-home hobbies. The scale of whether you're having fun or not is always judged on how much you're drinking and how many parties you've been to. She's also made a new friend who's encouraging that behaviour in her, so I'm a little bit nervous that she'll lose herself. Kat's storyline has a fake dating plot to it, so I'm really interested in that. And Vi is starting to wonder if the girl that she's crushing on also might like her. The thing I am wondering is that these 4 stories are all very cute, but I'm wondering how the sister element of it will impact them, because at the moment they're reading very much like 4 separate contemporaries that have just been mashed together because there's not much sibling interaction within each girl's chapter. So hopefully that'll change as I keep reading and their sisterhood will feel more integral to how the story is pieced together. So B, how's your reading going on?
I'm at page 77. Only 340. Wow, that looks a lot thicker than that. But yeah, I remember it like it's coming back to me as I read. So it's about 4 girls whose friendship has broken. They grew up in this summer camp, and it's a summer camp's reunion when they're 17. So they go back sort of like a last hurrah to see each other, and they step into a photo booth to take some memories of them now. And then that photo booth like boots them back 2 years into the past when they were 15, the last summer they shared, and within those 2 years they haven't spoken, so they're kind of strangers to each other now. It's in third person and each chapter sort of follows one of the girls, and I just really love it. Like, I remember all of the details of it. Like, it's playing sort of in a movie in my head as I read it back. I remember the twist, and I remember the missions that they had to do because they're trying to recreate the summer when they were 15, because they think that's how they'll get back to the present / the future. I really like it, but I remember that it's also like quite sad and unresolved at the end, so I wonder how I'll feel about that this time. Probably only been with each girl for like 2 chapters so far. Zoe, who's kind of like the girl next door. Joy is the artsy kid, well now she is. She's the one with the secret and the one that's kind of brought all of them back together. Tully is the superficial one, and Lucy is the sort of uptight one. So she's more like nervous for everything to happen because she's got the most perfect life out of all 4 of them in the future present. I don't know, I think she goes through the biggest change.
She has the most to lose, I guess.
Yeah, most to lose, yeah.
We've decided to read the summary books on the day where it's overcast.
Yeah, whoops. We should have read these yesterday.
I'm now finished with The Last Summer of the Garrett Girls, and I have to say by the end my favourite story ranked was probably Vi's first, just because I love a good coming out story. I love the trials and tribulations of that one, and I loved the emphasis on a happy ending, especially because Vi's character was such an advocate for LGBT characters being represented in the media that she was consuming. There were so many pop culture references, and she talked about Nina LaCour books a lot, so that made me want to pick up We Are Okay. Next, I'd say Kat's story, probably. The fake dating was fun, even if I didn't really understand, like, fake dating kind of does boil down to either putting on a pretense for people that you want to impress or you want to make somebody jealous. And in Kat's case, it was making her ex-boyfriend jealous, but then she realised that she might actually have feelings for the person she was fake dating. So again, another conventional story that I did kind of see coming, but I'm a sucker for that trope. And then probably B and Des's story are tied for my third favourites. I feel like B's story was the least happy because Although her love interest was nice, it was coming off the back of cheating on her boyfriend, and I really appreciated the breakup scene, the fact that Bea was able to recognise her flaws, know that she had done something wrong. But in the end, it is a book about family and family supporting you no matter what, so she definitely wasn't villainised too much. Des, there were a few moments in her story, especially when she was interacting with people that were in relationships or just witnessing relationship things happening. She said a few sentences like, "This isn't what I want," or "I've never really thought about myself that way, I don't see that in my future." Those kind of sentiments that made me think she might be saying that she's ace, but it's not canon because that word is never used, but that's definitely her mentality. So that thread, I think, was really lovely, and it made me appreciate her character even more. And unfortunately, that is the kind of representation that we have to take for an ace identity. It's normally subtext, which is disappointing, especially when Vi's character was so openly queer. But whatever, it was nice to read into. Every girl's story culminated at the same time in this big fallout, so the very end of the book was probably the most dramatic because it was just chapter after chapter of things blowing up in the girls' faces. And like I was saying in my previous clips of the sisters not really being that combined, that was definitely how like all of their dramas were exposed in exactly the same way, so that's how they all linked. Would have liked more sisterhood, more friendship bonds between them, rather than it feeling like 4 individual stories, like just an anthology of things. But it was a very delightful read, and it was nice to be not so much in my feelings as I was when I was reading The Last Boy and Girl in the World. I'd give it a good 3.5 stars. I also managed to read this book all in one room and have it count towards my book that made you smile. So that's 3 out of the 4 challenges left. I've only got the Place That You Want to Go challenge left to complete. I'm finished with Proof of Forever now, and turns out it was just as good as I remember it being. This is, again, I guess was an accidental theme of this readathon, a sad ending. It's bittersweet where the happiness isn't actually at the end but in just the future that you can hope for the characters. I really love all of the journeys that all 4 of the girls go on from start to finish. I really love and appreciate the structure of this book as well, the way that all the girls aren't hitting the same emotional beats at the same time. Like when one is up, others are down. And it just makes for like a roller coaster of a reading experience. I appreciate like whenever you get into a new point of view, it's like, oh, but I want to kind of go back to the others. But then the more you read of it, you're like, wow, I'm really invested in this one. I think maybe my standout character is Tali, just because I think her story is one that you don't often read about. I love the antics and the summery feel. It's again quintessentially American. It's set at a summer camp. I can't really imagine in some ways like just how summer camps work. It's wild. And this is a co-ed one as well, from ages 7 until 15. This book also has 4 love stories, but it's not like each girl like has a love interest that you're like, you're gonna end up together. Like, it's not predictable. It does different things with each of them, and I love and appreciate that. It's also got like a queer awakening plot line, and I couldn't remember that being a part of the book, so I'm really happy that it was, because it just warrants it even more as a favourite of mine. And just like Maddie said, for a 5-star book, it has to like draw out emotions in me, and I was very much in my feelings again once I finished it. I put it down and I was just like, just kind of went blank for a little bit, like just thinking about life and the past and what I could do in the future. It's been an existential readathon, to say the least. And then once I finished it, I was like, do I want to read something else after this, or do I just want to sit with it for the rest of the day, like properly digest my feelings towards the story? That might be it for my reading for the time. I've just had some very intense reading experiences, and both this and Wild Blue Wonder are shaping... This was a 5-star book, and Wild Blue Wonder is shaping up to be a 5-star book. So I'm really happy that I've spent this time reading slowly books that I've actually really enjoyed, rather than racing through as I have done in other readathons and read all days. I haven't really heard anyone talk about it otherwise, and obviously Maddie and I haven't talked about it for a long time, and it's just so nice to have that validation that a book that you said was your favourite, after reading it again, it genuinely is. Like, that holds up. And this is the first book I've reread in a very, very long time. It's kind of inspired me to think like, oh, I should probably reread old favourites again. So in a very out of the blue manner, I decided to read one of the Princess Diaries books. This is the 6th book in an 11-book series, and in the past, I think maybe 3-4 years ago, potentially, I decided that I was going to read the whole series through, but only within the last couple of years have I managed to find them all in a charity shop. So I've actually got up to book 7, so I technically was on book 8, but I thought I'd just go in the middle, and it's because I've been watching Emma and her sister at Drinking by My Shelf read the whole series, and I've probably watched that video about 5 times in a week just because I find it so delightful, and it really encouraged me to pick this back up again. Exactly what I needed, just so frivolous and light, and I absolutely love the writing style. Mia's emotions are just so close to the surface. And she's just got such a fun voice that reading these books is like watching an episode of your favourite TV show. So I'm going to keep going with this and say that it counts towards my book that puts a smile on my face, because there's almost nothing better than just finding exactly what you want to read and reading it. So it's now the third day of the reading rush, and also the first day of Bang Bang Con, where BTS are streaming all of their concerts right up until the Love Yourself series. In our time zone, that meant that we had to wake up at 4 a.m. to start watching the HYYH series, and we did, and now it's 12. Have we really been watching BTS for 7 hours in a row?
Woo!
Yes, we have been. This afternoon, after 11 hours of streaming BTS concerts, I read 2 books in the Princess Diaries series, number 8 and number 9, which means I now only have the finale left to read, and then of course Royal Wedding, which is the whole point of picking them up. It's been so great reading this series. I never got this far through when I read them originally, and Mia's really maturing with each book. There's a time jump before the 10th book, and it's just before her 18th birthday, so I'm excited to see what she's like then. A lot of things are left unresolved at the end of the 9th book, particularly Mia's friendship with Lily and her relationship with Michael, so I'm of course curious to see how that's going to play out. Although I guess the fact that Royal Wedding exists might give spoilers to who she ends up with, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be Michael anyway because he's Endgame. And suddenly I forgot about this video until a week later and forgot to update what happened on Sunday. Basically, we just watched another 11 hours of BTS concerts and I finished reading the 10th book in the Princess Diaries series. This was so rewarding. It follows Mia as she's written a book as her senior project and she's trying to get it published, and there's lots of fun discussions about how romance is often seen as less valuable than other literary things. I think it's the differing opinions of the boys that she shows it to that ultimately help Mia decide which boy is better for her. It's been a while since I've read a final book in a series, and I loved how every character got their moment, how you see Mia and Lily's friendship reconnect, and there are also a few unexpected things that I wouldn't have seen coming just from my knowledge of the films alone, particularly the fact that Lana, who is Mia's enemy for the first half of the series, ends up becoming one of her closest friends in the books. Because I read them all so close together, they've kind of all blurred into one the second half of the series, but it was really enjoyable. So if you haven't read the Princess Diaries series and do think that you could put up with Mia's immaturity for the first half, then it's definitely worth getting to the end. And if anybody has read the whole series, I'd love to know what you thought. Now I get to move on to Royal Wedding when Mia is 25, and that's going to be exciting to see if she's still the same girl that she is and what kind of things she's dealing with as an adult and an actual royal in charge of things. So by the end of the stay-at-home reading rush, I managed to complete 3 of the challenges. I didn't manage to do the place that you wish to go, unless I count Genovia, but maybe that's a stretch. But I think B managed to do all of the challenges. So thank you everyone so much for watching this video. We hope you had a great stay-at-home reading rush, and we'll see you in our next video.